Masked in school. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Do I just start?
Go right ahead. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I am the mother of a 6-year-old first grader, and I come here today to demand that you change your mask guidance for our children while inside the school buildings. For more than 14 months, our children have complied with everything that has been asked of them. They transitioned to remote learning. They transitioned back into the classroom via hybrid schedules and eventually back to full-time 5 days. And through all of that, we have been learning more and more about the impacts of COVID within the 0 to 17 age group. We have learned that children are least likely to transmit the virus and least likely to become severely ill if they do contract it. We learned that children in the 0 to 17 age group have a 99.98% survivability rate, yet they still have the strictest restrictions placed on them. While the rest of the state will get to take off their masks this coming Saturday, both indoors and outdoors, our children do not. They are being forced to continue to wear their masks while inside schools. And for what? If the vaccine works to protect people, and most of the teachers and school staff are fully vaccinated or have had the opportunity to be, why must our children continue to wear their masks? Why are they being thought of last? Why are they being treated like second-class citizens? Why are they being made to wear what is essentially a scarlet letter on their face for a virus that will not severely affect them? My daughter and many of her friends are suffering right now from severe seasonal allergies. My pediatrician diagnosed her with severe allergies due to excessive mask wearing. It needs to stop. I demand that you change your guidance and allow masks to be optional for teachers and staff that are vaccinated and students, all students, while inside the school buildings effective June 1st in accordance with the state guidance. Regardless of the child's vaccination status, this should be a topic of personal choice. Allow us parents to make the decisions that we feel are best for our children. As parents and adults, it is our job to ease the fear of children, yet you are the adults making the decisions, and you're doing the complete opposite. Instead of saying that it's okay to return to normal, you are feeding the fear and saying that our children will cause death if they unmask. You, along with Governor Baker, have preached that you are following the science when putting forth guidance. But if you were, then you would change your guidance based on the scientific data we now have. Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." In looking at the way that you've treated our children, I'd say you don't care one bit. You have used and abused them for far too long, and it needs to end. Our children are not your political pawns to use in any way that you choose. Unmask our children now. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here today. Okay, next up I have Beth Humbird, a parent of 2 elementary-age children in Andover, and also one of the parents organizing Bring Kids Back Mass, and Antigone Grasso, another organizer of Bring Kids Back Mass. Good morning. Go right ahead.
All set? Good morning. My name is Beth Humbird, and I'm the parent of 2 elementary-age children in Andover. I've lived in Massachusetts my whole life, attending K-12 public schools in the Pentucket Regional School District, and I also work in public higher ed. My day job is as a tenured professor in the business school at UMass Lowell. But today I am here with Antigone Grasso. I'll let her speak in a moment and introduce herself. And we're here on behalf of Bring Kids Back Mass, which, as you may know by now, is a volunteer crew of more than 5,000 parents that has formed organically over the past year as we advocated for a return to in-person learning. On that note, we are grateful that this board here a few months ago granted the commissioner the authority to reopen schools, and we're also very pleased that the guidance has been updated recently to allow children to be mask-free outdoors for recess and sports. But there is still work to do, and quite a bit of it. All along, we had said our first goal was to get children back into school buildings, and then we would focus on picking up the pieces of what was going on inside. Sadly, there is quite a bit to pick up, at least insofar as students' ability to access the full educational experience that should be occurring inside school buildings. Let me be clear, we are parents. We don't claim to be experts in the state's education laws and regulations, although we have learned quite a bit about them this year. But we are becoming experts in the disparate, varied, and in some cases very concerning ways that safety protocols have been operationalized differently in districts across the state. I say that because of what we've learned from the stories coming into us from parents in our group. Let me share a few examples of the many that we've received. Children's school libraries still closed, books that must quarantine upon return, and children unable to perform upper-level science labs because they aren't allowed to touch the lab materials. Children eating lunch on towels or buckets on the floor being told not to speak. Some districts show movies during lunch to deter children from speaking. Others purposely separate friends so they'll be less tempted to talk to one another. Children unable to drink water at their desks since they're only 3 feet apart. Sometimes parents of children with chronic medical issues have had to file a 504 simply so their child has permission to take a sip of water at their desk. Children with no recess happening at all. Students being told they cannot stand up to help a friend at another desk. If they want to collaborate, they should sit down and open a Zoom breakout room to do so. Students required to clean their own desks with warm soapy water between classes in middle school, doing this upwards of 6 to 7 times per day. Districts where mask breaks cannot happen on inclement weather days, and some districts where children do not get any mask breaks at all. And finally, children being restricted from accessing education altogether because some districts still require a full class to quarantine because of one positive case, despite distancing, masking, or updated close contact guidelines. We are concerned. We're concerned that even as some of this guidance is updated, these protocols are sticky. They will take far longer to roll back than they did to implement. We are concerned with the narrative that the kids don't seem to mind, when in fact we have no way of knowing what practices are remaining and where. We are concerned that the pace of unraveling these protocols does not reflect the urgency associated with children's wellness and mental health, and is a stark contrast to how quickly these protocols were implemented when the urgency focused on COVID safety. We are concerned that the tradition of local control has frankly gotten out of control when it comes to districts being able to set their own public health guidelines that go above and beyond state guidance, that aren't grounded in the latest evidence, and that fail to consider the trade-offs for children. Commissioner Riley said last week that districts are welcome to go beyond state protocols so long as it doesn't impact a student's ability to access in-person education. Well, given with what I've just shared, we strongly believe that this must be expanded such that we cannot allow practices that impact students' ability to experience a safe, developmentally appropriate education, because after all, we know education is about far more than simply being inside a school building. We cannot let this continue. We cannot let this be how next year starts. We need to rectify this. And I'm going to pass it off to Antigone for some thoughts on what we might be able to do.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good morning. My name is Antigone Grasso. I am the parent of a child in elementary school and one in middle school in Westwood. I'm also the proud product of the Massachusetts public school system myself, and I currently work full-time in the healthcare field as a hospital administrator. Like Beth, I have been organizing Bring Kids Back Mass behind the scenes for the past year. It is clear that no one has been ill-intentioned in their development of these policies that are impacting our children. But it is also clear, as the examples Beth shared illustrate, that there is a lack of cohesion and consistency in how these safety protocols are being interpreted and implemented across the districts. Even more troubling, there seems to be limited collective understanding of what is occurring where and what the impacts are of these practices on our children's education. So what can we do to rectify this? We have 3 areas that we believe need your urgent attention as we close out this school year and look forward to the fall. First, the entire framing and tone around children, COVID, and schools must change. The messaging must shift to reflect the relative risk associated with children in this virus, and in the same breath to acknowledge that every protocol implemented comes with a trade-off to children's education. While physically getting the children back into the school buildings was a huge benefit to them educationally, we seem to have lost sight of their holistic health, mental health, well-being, and development. In-person learning is about teacher and peer interactions, human connections, human contact, reading facial cues, playing freely, not worrying about getting too close to a friend. All of these interactions contribute to a children's education, and yet we seem to have lost the forest through the trees. We must do all that we can now to shift the tone and framing to be less about children as a threat and more about children's holistic education in a manner that acknowledges relative risk. Secondly, we need to strongly consider what the purview of local control truly is going forward with respect to public health matters. Traditionally, and perhaps rightfully so, this control has largely been in the context of educational matters. Yet the past 15 months have made it clear that when the scope of the decision-making expands beyond this and into areas of public health, we end up with the situation we are in now. Why are matters of public health and pandemic protocols as it relates to the state of emergency included in the purview of local district control? Sure, districts worked with their local boards of health to manage the pandemic, but these examples we've shared, like a student unable to sip water at their desk, seem far beyond the purview of local educational control. And we are seeing this scope creep now, where parents are told that teachers' unions need to approve DESE's new guidance before children can share objects on school property, or where school committees have to vote to decide if children are allowed to unmask at recess. As we understand it, the state guidance is updated based on the latest scientific evidence from a team of experts. We simply cannot have teachers' unions or school committees with purview over this evidence and science driving policies that impact students' educational experience in school buildings. And finally, we must manage now what happens with the existing and future guidance from DESE. To start, we believe that the fall 2020 reopening guidance should be made null and void as of June 30th, closely aligning with the end of the state of emergency. And further, any guidance or protocols for the fall 21 school year must address what we've noted above: a shift in toning and framing, and managing the extent to which districts can go above and beyond evidence-based safety protocols. The existing language includes a lot of tentative and vague phrases such as whenever possible, to the extent feasible, and please consider, all of which largely led to districts choosing to implement the most restrictive protocols. We need DESE to simplify the language, focus on the evidence, and allow families to play a role in choosing how to manage their child's risk. We need to ask ourselves now what school will actually look like for these kids in the fall. Of course, the learning hours regulation box will be checked, but will students be masked at a distance, interpreting others' emotions only through eyes? Will students be eating lunch on a dirty floor on an upside-down bucket far from friends? Will students be unable to play a team sport during gym class for fear they may get too close to another human? Will they only be allowed to turn and talk to a friend for 15 minutes while ensuring their masks are properly fitted? What may count as access to in-person learning does not necessarily constitute a proper school environment, particularly in light of the updated knowledge on the virus, a highly effective vaccine for adults, and a deeper understanding of how this year has truly impacted the children. So in closing, Bring Kids Back Mass is here. We know that some of our advocacy has helped this board to do its work, and we are sure at times it has made your work more challenging. We have become extremely well versed in how protocols are being implemented and managing at the district level in vastly different ways, thanks to our huge network of parents who can share what is occurring on the ground level, as the governor has said. We welcome any opportunity to be part of this process in sharing our knowledge as we look forward to the fall. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Okay, the next up is a group talking still about the school reopening. Kerry Rodriguez, Tim Langan, Natasha Meji-Madri, and Rodolfo Aguilar, and Priscilla Hedgepeth are all scheduled to come in together. There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Is it okay to take the mask off during, or do we need to keep it on? Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Good morning, Secretary Pizer, members of the board, Commissioner Riley. My name is Kerry Rodriguez. I'm the founder of Massachusetts Parents United and the president of the National Parents Union. We're an organization that serves 18 communities here in Massachusetts with approximately 25,000 members and nationally a collective of 500 parent-led advocacy organizations in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. We're an affiliate of Unidos US and serve on the CCSSO National COVID-19 Relief Advisory Work Group to the U.S. Department of Education and serve as advisors to Secretary Cardona on COVID-19 recovery, school climate, and school discipline, federal guidance that you will see coming shortly. Through our work over the past year, we have organized parents to send you and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education thousands of emails and placed thousands of phone calls to voice our concerns, letting you know our priorities regarding what is happening around education during the pandemic when it grew difficult to have our voices heard while organizing just on the local level. We have organized several town hall events where parents and families from every corner of the Commonwealth were able to speak directly with the Commissioner and his Associate Commissioner of Special Education to have their voices heard while being simulcast in 5 different languages. We've conducted 17 national polls, 4 statewide polls as well that have been cited extensively in the media, and today I am here to highlight the most important findings relative to the spending of ESSER funding coming into Massachusetts. Here on this chart that you see behind me, which we're also going to be emailing to you. This is slide 23 of one of our most recent polls, which just came out in April. We have fresh data that is actually going to be available on Thursday because this is a poll that we actually do monthly to track, both nationally and here in the Commonwealth, the priority of parents around ESSER funding. You can see quite clearly where the priorities of parents are relative to how this money should be spent. A lot of parent concerns overwhelmingly relate to spending around high-speed internet and equipment concerns, providing counseling, mental health support, providing individualized learning plans for students based on specific needs, and providing additional academic instructions. Each of the folks who are providing testimony today will kind of dive into additional concerns that parents have. In addition, we have, and I'm just going to wrap here, expectations around transparency, and wanted to make it clear that over the next 2 years, we're going to be working in conjunction with our friends at the Edgenomics Lab at Georgetown to conduct our own independent analysis of district and state usage of these funding sources, or these funds coming into Massachusetts, in alignment with these priorities, and assigning our own grades and assessments on a quarterly basis to track how they align with parent priorities across the state, to make sure that transparency is being provided to families and communities across the state, and that these funds are being used well. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Good morning. My name is Natasha Meji-Madri. I am a mom of 5, ages 14 to 25, 1 in middle and 2 in high school. First, I would just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. This past year has been nothing short of terrible for so many families across the country and the nation. I am very grateful that the federal government is giving money towards education. We want to make sure that this money is not spent wastefully. We would like to see the money spent in a way that is invested in our children, and it will continue to be reinvested in our children going forward. After meeting with thousands of parents and having focus groups and polling both in Massachusetts and nationwide, we at the National Parents Union and Massachusetts Parents United have developed the following: 10 things parents should see in the classroom and or their living rooms. Individualized learning plans for each student to include academic, social, and emotional growth and well-being. This needs to be done to ensure that our babies are getting the support they need in order to recover. Extended learning opportunities that meet your child's comprehensive needs. This includes targeted tutoring with results being communicated to parents and teachers. The tutoring should be free, and the information should be easily accessible to families in multiple languages. Equitable access to technology, including high-speed internet, technology, and maintenance of technology, training and development opportunities for students and families. This shouldn't be low cost, it should be free, and it should be free for all students and families. All materials and equipment should be high quality and provided to parents at no cost. This should also include the cost of insurance to replace damaged items at no cost to families. Curriculum that is inclusive of Black, Indigenous, people of colors, perspectives, and histories, and is vetted by parents and community representatives. It is very important that our students learn about their history, all of their history, not just selected parts. Teacher and staff knowledge and approach that is human-centered, culturally proficient, and sustaining, trauma-aware and informed, restorative, and supports English language development. This would include investing money in programs that are building a pipeline for diverse teachers that look like our kids. Frequent communication regarding each student's comprehensive progress using fair and monitored grading practices. Spend money making sure that parents and families know how their children are doing all the time. College, career, and vocational educational opportunities that are indicative of the needs in the marketplace. Spend money ensuring that our students have the resources that they need to pick a college that they would be happy at, and then support them to make sure they are successful. This should include spending money on remedial classes and money for each student to be able to buy books for college and whatever materials they need to succeed. Services provided per the terms of the student's 504 plan or IEPs. Learning environment that is inclusive and safe. Spend money making sure that the school is a safe place. For example, there are no mice running around the buildings because the buildings have been cleaned up, the broken windows have been fixed, and the ventilation systems in all schools are in good working order. Thank you for taking these into consideration.
Hi, my name is Priscilla. I am a mom of 4, I currently have a second grader and a junior in high school. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I just want to say that 2020 has opened our eyes. It opened our eyes to a broken system. We must do better. This funding needs to be used to fix this broken system. We need social, emotional support for our children, mental health support. Our kids are dealing with trauma, a whole year of not being around their friends, stuck inside their house, and losing some of them losing loved ones, and dealing with all kinds of abuse with just anyway. The point is that our kids need counselors. I think therapy is important. I think that we need to touch in with these children and make sure that they're okay. And I think that there's so many ways that we can do that. We can extend the day of the classroom. We can implement therapists that are always around and readily available for any child that needs this support. We need our kids to know about self-care and the importance of taking care of themselves. Our kids also need staff that look like them. How do we do that? I know that's the hard question, but we have to figure out a way to get the children that are in these urban communities to have staff that look like them and that they can relate to, including the therapists. We need teachers that are committed to this movement. We need teachers who are passionate about positivity and encouraging our kids to be great. We need school programs that are, giving them cultural awareness. And I would love to see after-school programs for my child that is going to encourage them, the one that is going to be a senior soon, to go to college and to be great, continue, and then to come back to her own community and, help support it. This is the cycle. We have to bring them back to help make our world better. And I think that this opportunity that you guys have to help people just be better. So I think that there's a lot of people even right now with bachelor's degrees that don't have jobs. How can we create jobs for them? We can create programs that say, hey, if you become a teacher and help, we'll do this or that. And I also just want to say really quickly that the teachers are awesome and they're underpaid. We need to do a little bit better. And we need to, I think that their job is valuable as a doctor. And I trust my child with these people. I want them to be educated and vibrant and amazing. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to address the committee today, and thank you for the fun greeting outside, by the way. Definitely woke me up. My name is Tim Langan. I'm Matthew, Miles, David, Max, and Dylan's father, and the Chief Operations Officer at Massachusetts Parents United and the National Parents Union. I'm here to speak today for parents who have communicated to both of my organizations, as well as to DESE, concerning what they want from their school districts. They've been communicating this over the past year through town halls that were attended by hundreds of parents, as well as Commissioner Riley. They've been emailing DESE. They've sent thousands of emails to DESE. They've also completed surveys, not just on a state, but also on national level, and they've participated in several focus groups. As you can see here, what they would like from the districts are new individualized education plans and academic pathways for matriculating children. They would like IEPs and 404 plans for children with special needs. They would like additional extended learning time opportunities at no cost, as well as high school tutoring and acceleration academies as well, to make up for lost learning. They would like free breakfast, a continuation of free breakfast and lunch programs, such as breakfast after the bell, if possible, dinner as well. High-speed internet access and equipment, I think we can all agree, is a no-brainer after the last year. Additional mental health and social and emotional support staff as well, to help them cope with the trauma of having to learn at home over the last year, as well as not seeing their friends or having any kind of social interaction. Partnerships with local organizations on the ground in the communities, Multilingual access. All resources should be in multiple languages based on the communities. Flexible day and yearly schedules to accommodate the needs of children working to complete unfinished learning as well, again, such as acceleration academies. And most importantly, a clear financial accountability framework. This level of financial transparency is crucial. You have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to inject billions into this school system. Please make it count so we can lift our children out of pandemic learning. Thank you again for letting me address you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rodolfo Aguilar. I am the product of the Boston Public School System, graduated from Jamaica Plain High in 1976. Today I'm a father of 3 young children. And my focus is basically for my community and for my kids to receive the best education. They only have one chance in a lifetime. And that's the reason why I'm here, because I would like to express that we as parents are talking about the different ways that we can work with the committee, with the commissioner, with educators to improve and narrow the achievement gap. Now with the pandemic, the experience that our community has had with remote learning has put us in a disadvantage. We welcome in-person learning. And as you heard, many parents here, and the parents that are here with me, we would like to take in consideration some of the suggestions we're making, because we do think that it will make a big difference in the outcome. And this is something that we have the opportunity to do today. And in many ways, funding, from what I hear, is not a problem. The problem is how we spend the money, and that's why we're here, because we would like you to understand that the money is needed to narrow this achievement gap. And if we don't do it correctly, we will miss the opportunity to do it. We're very concerned, parents, and we're not going to let this chance go by. We're going to continue working with you. Communication is key here, and we want to thank you for allowing us to come and talk to you guys about our concerns. And specifically, some of the points that I want to make sure that we understand is that the transparency. That's why I'm asking you guys communication. We would like to know how the money is going to be spent and how the money is going to make it to the classrooms. We have many concerns about learning in person, and some of the things is keeping our kids healthy. So we want to know how you guys are going to, maintain the buildings. As you heard, some of the past history of maintaining the buildings for our kids that they go to school. Some of them have deplorable situations, and we would like you guys to consider that and change that. Okay, so we are here because we would like to hear more from the committee on how you guys are going to deal with the situation. We're here with parents. We're concerned. We would like to hear from you, as well as the opportunity that we have today to express our concerns. Thank you very much, and we look forward and keeping working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back.
And have a good day.
You too. Okay, and our last group scheduled for public testimony are a group of folks talking about the Voc Tech regulations. And we have Superintendent David DeBarry from Northeast Metropolitan Regional Vocational Technical High School, Superintendent Adele Sands from Bristol County Agricultural High School, and Superintendent Aaron Polanski from the Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Welcome. Go right ahead.
Are we all set?
All set, go
All
ahead.
set, I'll start. Hello, my name is David DeBarry. I am the proud superintendent of Northeast Metro Tech Vocational School in Wakefield. Last month, there was some testimony related to the admissions process that referenced Northeast specifically. In addition, a DESE staff member was quoted in the Boston Globe validating some claims that we felt were erroneous, and I'd like to take a couple minutes to respond. As superintendent at Northeast Metro Tech, I want to reaffirm that we are a district that values diversity, equity, and inclusion deeply. I was born in Chelsea. I was raised in Revere. I graduated from Northeast and pursued a career in education because I care about those communities and the young people in them. My career began, the first half of my career, for the Chelsea Public Schools, working with students with conduct and behavioral disabilities. Eventually coming back to my alma mater, Northeast Metro Tech, which serves Chelsea students. Vocational education gives people the skills and knowledge they need to access stable, growing, well-paying jobs. This changes lives. Every community and district is unique. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solutions to admissions practices, but we have always been and will continue to be committed to reviewing our policies to ensure equity, inclusion, and diversity. Last month, 2 students from Chelsea spoke at the board's public comment session regarding admissions policies. They pointed to outdated admissions criteria, but also to the impact of potential discrimination at the elementary and middle school levels. Sadly, these students never applied to Northeast. And I want to repeat that. They gave testimony about discriminated practices related to our application process, yet had never even applied to Northeast. And that's unfortunate. I urge the board to consider how we can continue conversations about equity and inclusion more broadly, including at the elementary and middle school levels. I would also like to note, again, that Northeast does not discriminate against students from Chelsea or any community we serve, which is an allegation that's been made over the course of the work on this issue. I am concerned this narrative is harmful and could discourage students from Chelsea from applying to Northeast. This narrative is furthered by a flawed approach that compares the demographic percentages of Chelsea, which is much more racially and ethnically diverse than many of our other 11 sending districts, comparing it to the entire population. The demographic breakdown of all of our sending communities is not the same as the population of Chelsea alone. And comparing our acceptances in this way is misleading. Last year, for example, we accepted nearly every applicant from Chelsea, everyone. By their sophomore year, we had accepted every Chelsea student on our waiting list for the class of 2024. We regularly communicate with guidance counselors from the Chelsea Public Schools to work together and actively seek more student applicants and have a new and robust partnership with the Chelsea Collaborative, which works to promote the social and economic well-being of the Latinx immigrant community in Chelsea. We work with them to support various fundraisers, share resources, and many more other things. In closing, I wish to thank the board for prioritizing these changes so that we can collectively reflect and make the necessary changes to do right by all of our students. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Adele Sands, Superintendent of Bristol County Agricultural High School, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak. Over the last year, Massachusetts vocational, technical, and agricultural high schools were asked to take a deeper and more introspective look into their admissions processes. At Bristol Aggie and across the Commonwealth, administrators and staff took this opportunity to not only look at the data specific to students who are admitted into vocational, technical, and agricultural schools, but also, and equally as important, who is applying and how they get the information about their educational options. As we all know, students can't get accepted, and schools cannot admit students that do not apply. In an effort to collaborate and provide DESE with data on student access to information, vocational, technical, and agricultural schools across the Commonwealth completed a comprehensive survey regarding the way families access information about their vocational options. It was disheartening to learn that over half of the 8th grade students had either no access or minimal access to information about their vocational schools. When our data was presented to our colleagues at DESE, we were gratified to learn that our concern became theirs. You agreed that students and families need to know about vocational, technical, and agricultural schools in order to make the best decision for their future. I represent those vocational, technical, and agricultural schools when I say thank you to both the Department of Education and the Board of Education for acknowledging these disparities and adding language to the new regulations that will require more collaboration from sending schools to ensure that the students and families of the Commonwealth have access to information about all of their educational options. Even our most vocal detractors were shocked when presented with the data around the dearth of information available, especially to students of color in Massachusetts. They spoke quite openly about their support of this additional language in the regulations. It is possible for vocational, technical, and agricultural schools to work collaboratively with sending school districts, and these regulations will help close the information gap for our students. Recently, I hosted a tour for a local city superintendent. After his tour, he asked what he could do to get the word out about our fabulous school. I told him matter-of-factly that his students needed to experience exactly what he just experienced. They need to visit our schools. And he agreed. Next week, we're hosting his middle school principals and guidance counselors for a tour and planning session with the goal that every 8th grader will tour our school next year. I hope this is just the beginning of working together with Bristol Aggie's sending districts to be sure that students in southeastern Massachusetts know what their high school educational options are. Thank you for your time, your unwavering commitment to equity across the Commonwealth, and for the support of the students all schools have in common. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Craven and board members. My name is Aaron Polanski. I am the Superintendent Director of Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School. I'd like to open by clearly stating I am blessed by the collaboration of our sending schools, and I am here to speak today on behalf of the Massachusetts Association of Vocational Administrators as a member of the Board of Directors. We recognize that the regulation amendments proposed by Commissioner Riley are part of a multifaceted, ongoing effort by all stakeholders involved in CTE to ensure every student, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or any other demographic, has equal access to high-quality Chapter 74 programming. We applaud and support this effort. We value the opportunity to engage in dialogue regarding these matters with DESE and the development of this proposal. We appreciate that the proposed changes allow districts to develop their own data-informed admissions policies, promoting equitable access to our districts and programs. Our sending communities vary widely, and each district needs the flexibility to determine how it can best serve those unique communities. With that in mind, MAVA respectfully requests consideration of the following revisions to DESE's proposed amendments. Under proposed timelines and dates, admissions policy should be voted on by each school committee or board of trustees and then submitted to DESE every 3 years, not annually, and by November 15th, not August 15th, beginning with the 2022-2023 school year, not this upcoming school year. It is also proposed that administrators would review selective criteria annually and use 3 years of trend data when developing proposed changes to the district's admissions policy for consideration of approval by the school committee. In Section 2, we agree with the requirement to develop a plan that includes deliberate specific strategies to promote equal educational opportunities and attract, enroll, and retain a student population. However, we suggest with the revision that currently states, when compared to students in similar grades in sending districts, has a comparable academic and demographic profile, this comparison does not accurately reflect the complete population of potential applicants in each of our respective communities. We would like to recommend the following language: a plan that includes deliberate, specific strategies to promote equal educational opportunities and attract, enroll, and retain a student population that, when compared to students in similar grades residing in the member communities based upon the recent census, including public, private, and homeschooled students, has a comparable academic and demographic profile. With regard to access to middle school students, a deeper dive into current data did reveal an information gap, as Superintendent Sands mentioned, for middle school students that we feel is unacceptable and may be a cause of an equity gap in admissions. We propose adding the word all before middle school students to provide clarification that all students should be provided information and access to tours and presentations, and not just students selected by the sending school or with means to arrive at the respective vocational or agricultural school. Lastly, a shortage of seats in our programs created an inherent inequity that can be reduced through expanded facilities and programming to better meet demand. Discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion must not be limited to admissions processes and must extend into our delivery of curriculum and daily culture. Let's collaborate to expand the conversation and, more importantly, our actions to influence the greater good beyond the walls of CTE. I am thankful DESE has prioritized this conversation and that we've come together to support education of the whole person with regard for the trajectory of our collective communities. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you, superintendents, for coming. Okay, great. I'm going to skip to my report quickly. First, I'd like to lead off with Vice Chair Morton giving a quick report on the status of the Commissioner's performance review, which we've been meeting for the past couple of months.
Thank you very much. Yes, we've met several times for the purposes of evaluating the Commissioner's performance. The members of our committee are Amanda Fernandez, Chair Catherine Craven, Matt Hills, and we are supported quite significantly by Rhoda Snyder, General Counsel, and Helene Betancourt. So it's quite a group assembled to perform these responsibilities. We've interviewed almost 40 individuals and stakeholders regarding their perspectives, and we are in the process of drafting a formal evaluation which will be brought back to the committee for its consideration. I am scheduled to meet with the Commissioner at some point in mid-June to review the performance appraisal for presentation to our entire board at our June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morton. And, you know, as we've heard all morning about the return to what next year is going to look like, one of the things that's been a disappointment, and I'm hoping that we can resume it by the time Jasper is graduating next month, but we usually go on the road, or at least as chair, I wanted us to go on the road to get the context and the full context of the environments in which our children are learning. I'm hoping that, and I'm not sure if the restrictions will be relieved by the end of our meeting in June, or if we plan on going to Billerica. Our tradition is to go to the students' high school once a year, so I'm not sure if that's going to be able, but I do look forward to that sort of convening of us in different places because we've been unable to do that as a result of the pandemic, obviously. And as we talk about a return to, how do we reemerge from the pandemic? It's the big topic we've heard about all morning today. One of the things that we've also done during the pandemic is a lot of anti-racism training as a board, and I thank you for your participation and your attention to that. So it's with a sense of urgency that we reemerge from the pandemic, but also thoughtfulness to equity. And Amanda in particular and I have had some conversations. I would like to ask Amanda to sort of talk about her thoughts on equity and how we as a board keep equity front and center and the outcomes gap front and center as we all do. So Amanda, would you mind taking a little bit of my time as chair to address the board?
Thank you, Chairwoman Craven. I'd like to address the board with a larger context of the meeting last month, and feeling like I would be remiss as a Latina member of the board if I didn't address the situation regarding the comments made by Member Moriarty, which were heard by some to be disparaging to Latino communities. While we could debate the question of intent of the words of one person, what's far more important to me is the system-level work to be done in centering equity as a DESE and BESE. My life's work has been focused on how our education system can be improved to advance educational opportunity for all children, but with a particular focus on Latino children in the Commonwealth and across the nation. My work has been grounded in the belief that all young people, regardless of skin color or nationality, have a right to an education that, as the DESE mission says, prepares them for success in life. Anyone working in and around education is being challenged right now as we undergo a racial reckoning as a nation, as a state, and in our cities. This, along with the disproportionate impact of COVID on Latino and Black communities, makes it extraordinarily difficult for our communities of color. If anything, we should uplift and learn from the resilience and tenacity of our fellow citizens in Chelsea, Lawrence, Holyoke, Roxbury, and so many other communities of color. The pandemic has laid bare what was already there relative to disparities in our education system, but also the deep divisions and a level of vitriol and hate being spewed at adults and children of color, most recently including Asian Americans. A level of anger about the decision-making of DESE, districts and schools, and between community members with varying opinions, which we're hearing right now, about reopening school buildings reached a fever pitch during these last 15 months. It really is it's nothing like I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I'm worried about it. In our living rooms, in our schoolhouses, and especially at the BESE boardroom, my view is that there is a need for deep reflection on the collective responsibility we have as adults to all children in the Commonwealth. For BESE, given the privilege of the position that we are in, we play an important role in modeling the kind of conduct, beliefs about kids and learning, and taking care in our language choices. The stakes are high as stewards of education policies that I am confident we all take very seriously, but the context is different now. Our children are not only watching, but they need more of us. The department is making strides in driving an equity agenda, including the work of facing our historically racist education system and evolving the way they work to remove barriers to educational opportunity for kids. The board is part of that essential work. I thank you, Chair Craven, for your commitment by prioritizing, as you mentioned, racial equity training we've participated in, the establishment of a committee on the board regarding educator diversity as examples. The work, however, must continue. We must go further because, frankly, the work to end racial and ethnic injustice just never ends. A couple of things that I think might be very tangible in terms of how the board might spend more time on these issues is perhaps reviewing and learning how to use the racial equity decision-making tool that DESE has piloted in creating the roadmap that will be discussed in just a little while? What might we take from that we can apply to how we operate as a board? How about creating a common definition of what centering equity means for the board and putting it into practice? I'll end with this. So recently, I had the privilege of going to the Roxbury YMCA to visit learning pods that are in operation there. A little girl of just about 4 years old, who I did not know, she came running up to me with a book with the numbers 1 through 10 on the front cover. She proudly recited all of her numbers to me, and we gave each other a huge high five as she finished. She then happily went skipping back to her grandmother. In that brief moment, it struck me that she is the reason for the work we are doing. We must make sure that this little girl of color will feel proud, be excited, and believe she can have success in life through her K-12 experience. We owe it to her and all of the children of the Commonwealth to make sure that it happens. Thank you.
So many good points there as well. And I think, we talked about this during our anti-racism training, that we keep this front and center and keep this topic going, because as Amanda notes, it's never over. It's not something you finish and it's completed. It's always something we need to be mindful of. So at some point over the summer, I'd like to have a special meeting of us again, just to convene and talk about some of the topics that Amanda has discussed, and other board members as well. And sort of like the retreats that we had before on anti-racism training, continue that dialogue this summer as we gear up for the full school year ahead. And I love your point, Amanda, about the little 4-year-old girl, because I feel like, although these are highly orchestrated meetings when the Board of Ed shows up at your local school, there's always some moment of truth that you see with a kid in the hallway or something like that we can all take something from that. So, context is important for the decisions that we make as a board. And I appreciate your efforts on this, and James on your efforts with the pods as well, and Michael with your efforts in the pods in Holyoke. And I also have asked Jeff Commissioner Riley at the next meeting to see if we can come up with some of the best lessons learned from the pods that have occurred during this year, the sort of battlefield promotion type of situations that people have bootstrapped to make sure that learning continues. And I know so many of our board members are involved in that effort this year. So thank you one and all for that. Vice Chair Morton?
Yes, please, if I could. I want to completely and 100% endorse everything that Amanda Fernandez has just shared with us. Thank you, Amanda, for taking the time to put together your thoughts in the way in which you have. I think that it's totally appropriate that we would be having this conversation on the anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And so with that, I would like to say that, that I feel like our job is to embrace those communities facing the greatest challenges. Let us be clear regarding what those challenges are. Those challenges are racism and its false narratives, it's poverty, it's institutional and systemic racism, it's bias, conscious and unconscious. Let us do what Member Fernandez has called upon us to do. Let us, quote, recognize the resilience and tenacity of folks of color in the Commonwealth, close quote. Let us also remember that unless you or your ancestors are indigenous people of North America, you came from elsewhere. And while your ancestors may have experienced rejection and poverty and had to demonstrate resilience and tenacity to overcome the same, you did not have a constant knee on the neck so that you could not breathe. We must continue to remind ourselves that this country and its folks of color has suffered a tremendous history of racism, contempt, and nullification. And our job as a board is to support those folks who are facing the greatest challenges, and to do everything, every last single thing within our power to make certain that every child in the Commonwealth has every opportunity to reach his and her fullest potential. This should be the goal of everyone serving on this board. And I'm sure that will continue to be the way in which we'll go about doing our work, because we've demonstrated that is our commitment as we move forward. And so let us never, ever forget the challenges of those who are faced with racism and nullification at every turn, who are growled at every turn. And let us take every effort, every ounce of our effort to make sure that we are providing the pathway to opportunity. And that is, I think, our work as a board. And so let us continue down that path.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Morton. So powerful words from board members today. I will turn my time, I guess my report is complete. Thank you to the board members that have participated. And moving on to Secretary Pizer and then Commissioner Riley. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll yield back my time. I just want to thank you and Member Fernandez and Vice Chair Morton for their comments this morning and their thoughtfulness in marking this sad and but momentous anniversary. But I want to again thank all of you, all of our board members for their care and concern for the children of the Commonwealth and for doing what we can and continuing the work, as our Vice Chair said, of trying to address the longstanding inequities in our society and in our schools.
Thank you. Member Lombos had wanted to make a comment.
Thank you for. I was like, back here with my hand. Thank you so much. I did want to just support Amanda for making her very thoughtful statement. I know that what it means to actually represent and be responsible and accountable to a whole community. And I really want to reiterate again, and thank you again also, Vice Chair, for also sharing your comments. My comments aren't written, they're not as thoughtful, but I just wanted to respond because I just think it's so important for us board members to be able to have a conversation together. I myself heard about what happened through letters from calling for Mike Moriarty's, Member Moriarty's resignation. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I would just like to, in this conversation, have some sort of process or protocol. I was so happy to have Amanda reach out to me. She told me she was reaching out to Chair Craven. I thank you for that, taking that leadership, because I didn't know what to do as a board member. I also want to just put out that it would be great to have some clear process and protocols on how to resolve the situation. I didn't know that Member Moriarty actually issued an apology until it showed up in the paper. I would have liked that communication through the commissioner or through at the board level, because we were getting letters in public comment from even the Black Latino caucus in the legislature. So this is all just to say that I very much want to lift up Member Fernandez for, again, taking this leadership, for reminding us that equity should be at the center of all of our decision making, to remind us what our role is as board members. Sometimes it's unclear, and I'd like to just be clear and transparent about it. And want to lift up again this framework of how the board and DESE has been trying to move towards an anti-racist framework. And I fully support that and want to learn more about how I can be helpful in operationalizing that, both in our relationships as board members, but also through the policy making that we have to do together. So thank you again, Member Fernandez. Thank you, Vice Chair Morton, and thank you, Chair Craven, for your leadership here. And whatever I need to do to be supportive, I'm here and ready to do the work. Thank you.
As I mentioned, I intend to have us meet together in the summertime, and it's not going to be the first time there's controversy at this board. If we're doing our work and having real conversations, there's going to be controversy. So nothing's scripted, nothing's canned, and I think we have more time in our meeting over the summer to discuss protocols and processes like that. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Commissioner.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to acknowledge that today marks the one-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, a tragic event that deeply affected all of us and led to ongoing national conversations about race. And I think based on everything we've been working on, and we will continue to work on, I just want to say how important that is. I want to thank both Member Fernandez and Vice Chair Morton for their comments today, and look forward to continuing the work. The other item I have is slightly more personal. I just wanted to congratulate Jasper for his admittance into George Washington University, and we wish him all the best. I know that his next meeting is his last, but I felt like it was important to congratulate him as he moves on to his next adventure. Thank you.
And before we conclude the sort of reports out, I would like to take a moment of silence just to echo everybody's comments today, but also to remember George Floyd and where we're going as a country, and just take this moment and we can move on from there. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the regular course of business today. We have the School Council of the Year, Jessica Descartes, and Cliff Schwang is coming up to help us with the presentation.
So I'll kind of set the background. Jessica Descartes is a school counselor at Tech Boston Academy. She's been selected as the 2021 School Counselor of the Year by the Massachusetts School Counselor Association, and I'm delighted that she's going to be able to join us today to speak about her experience. You can see more information about Ms. Descartes under tab 1 of the memo, and welcome and congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Cliff?
I'm just going to make a brief introduction on behalf of Bob Bardwell and MASCA, which is the association recognizing our honoree today. School counselors are a huge and important part of our schools, and they attend to the various facets of the needs of our students and families. I can speak personally to the fact that counselors have been pivotal in my own children's schooling, and I've very much appreciated the counselors in their lives. MASCA is the organization, Massachusetts Association of School Counselors Association, that supports counselors throughout the Commonwealth and is recognizing Jessica today. And one thing to note that there is a framework that we've worked collaboratively with MASCA on around the expectations and guidelines for school counselors that really outline the sort of robust and multifaceted job that school counselors do. So with that, we would love to welcome Jessica. I had a chance to speak with her right before and can truly understand why she was chosen for this honor. Jessica?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for having me. I am honored to represent Tech Boston Academy and Boston Public Schools as the Massachusetts School Counselor of the Year. It was definitely humbling to be nominated and then selected. So I also want to, again, thank MASCA and the leadership there for the award and for their work in promoting school counseling in the district and in the state. This is my 7th year as a school counselor and my 7th year at Tech Boston. I primarily serve our English language learners who are members of our Sheltered English Immersion Program and our students with limited and interrupted formal education program. While we welcome students from all backgrounds, the majority of the students on my caseload are from Haiti. And most people know that this is extra special to me because my family is also from Haiti. My parents are first-generation Haitians who immigrated to the United States in the 1970s. So with this connection, I fully represent the students whom I serve, and thus I'm able to build stronger connections with them and stronger relationships with them. We know this is important because representation matters. Being able to see themselves reflected in their school counselors, their teachers, their administrators is crucial for students' development and well-being. You know, as I reflect on my experiences with students, I really have to focus on the fact that I would not be here today if I didn't have the support of my team at Tech Boston. TBA truly believes that every student's school experience should be tailored to their individual needs. Therefore, our administration has given our team of school counselors the autonomy to build a comprehensive school counseling program, which places school counselors at the helm of student learning. So with that, a common question for school counselors is, what does your typical day look like? And the honest truth is that every day is different, but we have to start by greeting students each morning and meeting them where they are. Some students come in with joy, with smiles on their faces. Some come in with trauma affected by events that are totally out of their control. And as school counselors, we need to be ready to serve them all. So how do we do this at TBA? I'm going to highlight 3 main areas that I think have been super helpful for our team and for our students. First and foremost, it begins with our school culture. Tech Boston has truly embraced the work of school counselors, understanding that school counselors are trained and equipped to service the whole student. Because of this, we are able to lead students through advisory curriculums. We complete safe and socially distant home visits. We advocate for our students at intervention meetings, and we're able to participate in relevant professional development and so forth. There's a lot that we do at Tech Boston. And this is because our administration is intentional about collaboration, and they ensure that school counselors not only have a seat at the table, but our voices are heard as we advocate not only for our work, but for our students. Second, as noted in one of the earlier slides, school counselors help all students across 3 domains. It's academic, social, emotional, and career. In order to provide targeted support in these areas, we have clear job duties where we understand that academically, we're supporting students' progress and their ability to learn. Social emotionally, we're helping students understand and process their emotions and helping them resolve conflict. And as students prepare to graduate, we are striving to help them make connections to navigate the post-secondary and career transitions. Our administration understands that direct service is needed for students to thrive in these areas, and focusing on other duties really decreases the time and energy needed to service students. So we're able to have other staff members oversee scheduling and test administration, conduct issues, and other duties as assigned, while school counselors are really focused on supporting students' well-being. And the last point that I want to highlight is that we're more available for our students when our caseloads are manageable. At Tech Boston, we have a team of 8 counselors who serve 915 students. This averages to approximately 115 students per counselor. The American School Counseling Association's recommended ratio is 250 students per counselor. The Massachusetts current ratio is 390 students per counselor. Smaller caseloads allow for more direct services where counselors can be proactive in strengthening student relationships and providing Tier 1 interventions as necessary. So, those are just a couple of things that we do at TBA, and there's always room for improvement. We're constantly evolving to meet the needs of our students and our communities. We've been told that we have an ideal school, counseling model, but the truth is that we know that this is not happening everywhere. Not all schools and districts follow the same template. So it's really important that administrations, listen to their counselors, receive feedback, review their current counseling models, and then really work hard to implement school counseling programs that allow counselors to put students first, which in turn will help advance student success. So, at this time, we're wrapping up what clearly was an unprecedented school year, but our work is never finished. Counselors, we work year-round. Our next steps include focusing on summer and extended learning and making sure that all of our students have summer opportunities to remain active and to remain engaged. We're also being proactive in planning for the next school year, thinking about how we will rebuild our community after, being remote, being hybrid, being back, and figuring out how we're going to adjust to these new normals. Our work continues, but it ultimately begins with support and collaboration from our schools, from our districts, and everybody in this room. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to share these experiences because, again, without Tech Boston, I would not be here today. And I urge you all to please continue supporting the work of school counselors. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have time, Cliff, for a couple of, any comments from board members, questions? Other than congratulations?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one, Dr. West.
So thank you so much for your work and for being here today. I was first really made conscious of the important role that school counselors play by some research that was conducted here in Massachusetts that looked at differences in outcomes of students that were assigned to different counselors, and really showed that counselors play a huge role in especially influencing students' post-secondary choices, and as important a role as the teachers in the same high schools. And these differences in outcomes for students based on their counselors suggest that there are really opportunities to learn from the practices of the most effective, most successful counselors like yourself. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what opportunities there might be for sharing best practices and structures, perhaps even in this role of school counselor in the year that we could capitalize on. But what's going on more generally in that area, and what could be done?
So one of the things that we're fortunate at Tech Boston to work through is our team of school counselors meets regularly to discuss what's going on, current trends, current concerns, troubleshoot any issues that we're currently having with students or, on scene. And one of the things that we're tasked with doing is also developing our own professional development. So when we are giving professional development opportunities, we have more opportunity to capitalize on the work that we're doing. So I really suggest that we start looking at professional development for school counselors, but also making sure that teams on school sites are aware of what school counselors are doing and what their tasks are, because when the school and the administration has an understanding of what the role is itself and what the job duties of a school counselor are, I think there's more understanding on how this role really truly affects our students. So I think professional development for school counselors, but also for teams at schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Well,
I'd just like to make a comment if I could.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You're coming from Tech Boston Academy. I'm old enough to remember when Mary Skipper started that school.
She's wonderful.
And I was also really good friends with Keith Love, who, as you know, tragically passed away. But just great people come out of that school, and the work they do for kids every day is amazing. So thank you for continuing that legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming here, and thanks for all your
you for
work.
having
And
me.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
If you wouldn't mind, could we take a 5-minute bathroom break and reconvene after that? I'm not quite sure how we get past the crowd outside, but.
I think you go out that far door there. Mostly.